What's up guys, Eric here with Tried and True Review. Hey, today we're going to be showing you how to seam some carpet together using a heat seam method. And so we're going to be doing that as part of the installation on my living room here. So if you can see down here behind me, we've got some carpet laid out. Let me turn the camera around here and we'll get a little better shot. I've gone ahead and I've got my floor all prepped. I got it all cleaned up and vacuumed, and then I've got my tack strip down, and I put the pad down, and then I've rolled the carpet out here in the room. I've got the room about 75 degrees, and what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be installing this piece of carpet. And we have to run a seam along this edge. This room is wider than 12 feet. It's about 13.9 wide, and we're going to have to put about a 1 foot 9 inch seam all the way along that wall. It goes about 14.5 feet long. One of the things we want to remember when we're setting up to install carpet is we always want to stretch away from obstacles or any anomalies. And what I mean by that is where we have this tile hearth right here, we don't want to try to stretch into that and up into these corners. If we can avoid it, we want to stretch the other way. And that's what we're going to try to do. And we also have these doorways here. We have the bathroom doorway here, and then we have a hallway here. So what I'm going to do is when I get ready to start stretching, I'll actually set this wall here, and I'll take my first couple of stretches right across here, and try to get this as tight as I can. And I'll tuck all this in and trim it and tuck it all in and have it set really good. So when I turn around and stretch towards that laminate, I'll angle that way, and then I'll angle that way. And then I'll come back and I'll set all this wall, and we'll finish stretching straight across there. And but first thing we need to do is we need to get set up to do this seam. And what I need to do, the factory edge on this carpet, I'll just pull this piece back for a second. The factory edge on this carpet isn't straight enough or clean enough to actually run a proper seam and make the seam look good. So what I have to do is I have to use a straight edge, and I have to cut a straight edge on the back of this carpet all the way down this edge. And I only have to take off, usually only have to take off about a 1/2 inch in order to get it straight. But what I do is I follow all along the edge there with my straight edge. I'll throw that down on the ground here. Sorry about the camera work, guys. And then I'll just I'll slide that right into place, and I'll cut right along this edge all the way down, and then we'll flip it over and finish the edge off. And then I'll do the same thing. I've got another roll sitting right up there that does the fill in this room. That's what we call the piece we're going to be seaming on, is the fill piece. It'll do the fill in this room, it'll do my master closet, and it will do my stairs going down into the basement. So I've got to cut pieces off of that for this seam, and then as well as for the master closet in the other room. So I'm going to get set up to do that. I'm going to go ahead and stick the camera on a tripod so I'm not moving all around, and get it to where you can actually see me do some work. So we'll go to the next step. Okay guys, now before we get going again, I really do want to stress the importance of safety. These knives that we use and a lot of the other equipment that we use can be extremely dangerous if you don't respect them. These blades are very, very sharp, and they have no mercy on flesh. And I've got scars to prove it. And cutting on these straight edges can actually be a little bit tricky, because we're going to be putting our knife right alongside this edge and cutting all the way down. And I've had them jump on me before. I've had it catch a little snag in the metal and actually pull off, and I've laid my fingers open really, really well. So we're going to try real hard not to do that today. I have learned how to keep my fingers out of the way when I'm cutting, but you just really, really got to be safe. So all I'm doing is I'm lining my straight edge up to where I've got about a 1/2 inch or so hanging over the edge that I want to trim off and get clean. This factory edge is just too beat up from the rolls being transported, and it was never built exactly flat and straight anyways. And we want a perfectly straight edge to be able to seam two pieces of carpet together. We want a straight edge on this side and a straight edge on the fill piece that we're going to be using. So what I do is I just kind of set my foot and leg on there, put plenty of pressure on the straight edge so it doesn't move, and got my hand leaning up on the other side. And that's how I've cut myself before, as I started here and the knife jumped and cut my thumb. So what I've learned how to do is keep my thumb up out of the way, and then just start cutting. Just go nice and slow with steady pressure, holding right against the metal. Not too hard, just enough pressure to hold it there, and then we'll just continue right on down. Being careful not to move the straight edge as we go, and keeping it nice and straight. And sometimes you got to run back and just kind of lightly cut through some of the fibers you might have missed the first time. I am starting with a new blade. It's good and sharp. That's always important. And then what I do is I line it right back up on my line I got going on up there. And continue straight down, making my cut. I make sure that we're all lined up here, and we are. And I'll just continue straight down. And then when we get down towards the end, we got to flip it over the other way to be able to get that other piece. And I'll do that, and I'll come right back. Okay, we'll go ahead and finish this edge out. And all I did was flip the carpet over from one corner to the other so that I could lay it flat here on the ground and be able to make this cut. Okay, so there's that. And what I will do now is I will take a minute to bring that other roll over here, roll it out upside down, and start measuring out the pieces that I need to cut for my fills. And I'll come back when I got that done. Okay, so what I've done is I've turned the carpet, this other piece of carpet, upside down and rolled it out. It takes up a good portion of the room, and you might be able to tell I've snapped a blue line, blue chalk line, all the way along this edge up to the other side, and that's what I'll be cutting along. I've made sure this black line that I've got drawn, well, it's on the other side of the carpet. This black line that I've got drawn on the carpet all the way along this edge here. It helps me identify what direction the carpet's going. Remember I told you in the last video that carpet has a direction, and the way the nap lays down, you always want to keep that going the same direction on every piece that you do. So I know that this black line here, when I flip this piece over, the black line needs to be up there along the laminate edge where we're going to be seaming the carpet to, and that's the way the piece of carpet underneath it runs as well. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to start right here at this point, and I'm going to cut straight down that blue line with along my straight edge. And then I know that as I flip this piece back over, it will lay right against this other piece, and both sides will be straight edge, and I'll be able to seam that on. This piece isn't long enough to go the entire length of my seam, so I'm going to have to do a T-seam. I'm going to have to seam a little piece onto the end here. I'll square this up and make it a straight edge, and then I'll cut another small piece of carpet that I'll seam onto the end of this, and that seam will go up there in the corner. You always want to, whenever you can, you always want to keep your seams out of your walkways. So, you know, by way of direction here and of relevance, my front door is right there. That's where you come in the front door, and then you're going to most of the time be walking all the way across here. And either into the hallway there or the bathroom down there. This area here isn't going to have carpet. So I'm keeping the seams out of the walkway. Most people won't be walking right against the window area there. There'll be a couple of couches and tables and end tables and stuff set up there anyways. So whenever you can, you want to keep seams out of your walkways. I do have one I'm going to have to put in a walkway. It's going to be the doorway between my master bedroom and my master closet. So we'll address that when we get there. It'll just be a doorway seam, and you don't have any choice when you get into doorways where to put your seams. But whenever you can, you want to keep them out of the walkways and out of the traffic area. So we'll go ahead and get this one cut. I'm not going to film that part. You watched me do the last one. This is the same way. And then I'll get another piece cut, and I'll come back to you when I'm ready to do a couple cross seam, a T-seam or a cross seam, and show you how that goes. Okay guys, so here we're gonna seam our two length pieces together that we need for our fill. I went ahead and I cut this fill piece that I needed to cut, and I cut the closet piece that I needed to cut, and I got that out of the way, and then I turned this upside down. And that's where we do all our cutting when we're doing our seams. This is actually going to go this piece is going to go like this, and it's going to cut onto the end when we're done here. So we need to straighten out, we need to square up our edges. We have them straight. I cut this one straight on the side, and this is the edge that we cut and straight edge to begin with. So now what I need to do is square the edges, and I do that by using my straight edge in combination with a carpenter square. And I lay the carpenter square right against the edge here that I know is already straight because I straight edged it. I hold it down and I bring my straight edge in line with that. And when the two all meet up, when we're square here, in line with our edge and square here, then I know this is going to be a square edge when I get it cut. And then I'll do the same thing with this edge. One thing I kind of forgot to mention is when I'm cutting these, I forgot my knife. When I'm making these cuts, I'm using a very sharp knife. I just turned it, I got a brand new blade in there. But I'm also just barely cutting through the backing. I don't want to cut down into the fibers of the carpet, so I'm not digging deep. You notice I'm kind of resting the knife at an edge, and I'm just barely cutting through the backing. I don't want to cut through the fibers. You can cut them off, and that'll leave a gap in your seam where you can see your seam, especially on the side where the nap's running towards, where the nap's laying down. On this edge right here, if I cut deep, I cut these yarns off, and I don't want to do that. So I only need to add about 6 or 7 inches to this side. That's about a 10-inch piece, so it's plenty big. So I'm straight here, and I'm just, like you can tell where I'm at with the knife, I'm just barely getting through the backing. In fact, sometimes I have to come back and just shave off a little bit of fibers that are still holding it together, but that one came out really well. And so this one here, so that edge is done. I'll be able to seam to that. This is a little fiber. I'll take it off with scissors. I'll be able to seam to that, and then I need to cut this edge as well. And in order to do that, I don't like to build up too many layers of material to cut on, because then your knife starts to walk around a little bit. So this one's small enough that I can actually cut the whole thing with my square. I know this edge is straight and this edge is straight because I already straight edged them, and I just got to take enough off to get the end square that I'm going to seam to now. So this one's small enough that I don't need to use my straight edge. I'll use the square as a straight edge, and I'll just cut very gently. Actually, you probably should turn the blade around even after that one cut, but that came out just fine. So that's our straight edge. Now I'll side that piece up. This piece will go onto the end there, and I'll seam these two together before running the long seam. So I'll show you how we set that up here in just a second. Okay guys, so some of the tools that we're going to be using to run a seam are, first off, we have our seam tape, and I prefer this brand. It's Orcon K40. All of my seaming stuff is Orcon, my iron, my seam tape. This is just my preferred brand. It's not the only kind, there's lots of them. This is the kind I like. And then we need a weight, and I use my seam iron box, and I put some heavy tools in it. I put a hammer and pound bar and things like that, something that's heavy. And I just close that up, and I use that as my weight, the whole box. You want to weight down these seams once we get them nice and hot, in order to hold the carpet down in the glue. This is a piece of that seam tape. I've already cut the size that I need, and what it is, I don't know if you can see that, there's a whole bunch of small little beads of glue that run across this paper tape, and there's some lines right down the middle to give us a center reference. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to center that right on our seam. So what I do is I usually fold it the other way, put the piece that has the nap, this piece has the nap facing this way, and this piece also has a nap facing this way, but it lays down nice and easy. And what I like to do is start about half the width of the tape on this side. I start in, because I'm still going to have to run a piece of seam tape along here when I seam the length, this length piece on when it's fully long enough. And then we put this piece here. I'm going to go ahead and plug the iron in. This is our seam iron. This is a bottom plate to it. When it gets hot, right now it's stuck on there with glue, but when it gets hot, it'll pop right off that bottom plate. And I set that on a scrap piece of carpet, heavy piece of carpet, just so it doesn't burn anything, because it gets extremely hot. And it's got a little light here on the top. I'll plug it in, you'll be able to see that light. Well, maybe we won't. Iron didn't come on. Maybe it's burned up. pretty old. It's been a long time since I started this iron. Try some other plugs here. Maybe it's just a plug issue. Nope, that iron is not coming on. Thankfully, that's not my only one. I have other ones. So we'll grab a different iron. And in fact, I have another one in this box. What's that buried? That's what happens when you try to do things live, folks. I'll throw this one back in here. It might just be that the light itself is burned up and not coming on. But I'm not going to mess with it right now. Even when they burn up, they're repairable. I've sent several of them in over the years and had them replaced. The other item we might need is a pair of scissors, and these are called duckbill scissors, and that'll be to trim our seams as we go any longer hairs that we don't want, any longer yarns that we don't want sticking up. This iron, as a matter of fact, is a brand new rebuild. I've never used it since I had it rebuilt. There we go, we got power. So we got a little light on. When that light goes out, when this iron's set right, and there's a spot on here, I set it to 3. 4 is the maximum. I like to set mine at 3. When that little light goes out, and it will fairly soon, it takes a few minutes for it to heat up, we'll be ready to start running our seams. So meanwhile, I'll get everything else kind of ready here. We'll probably edit some of this out. Finish having everything lined up so I'm ready to go. And I like to line up my edges right here is where, that's the most important thing. Make sure that these 2 points come together, these 2 here, but also that this line here is perfectly straight along there. We don't want to have to recut this. It's already cut straight. So we want that to line up. And then we want to make sure we're lined up all the way. And we're lined up pretty good right there. Right now you might still be able to see that, but once we get this seam together, that will pretty much disappear. And I'll show you how that works here in just a second. Okay guys, our iron is good and hot, and I don't know if you can see, the camera can tell or not, but it's actually smoking a little bit. You'll know when it's hot, for one thing, even if the light doesn't go out, because you'll smell burning. It almost smells like burning plastic, but it's the glue that's on the iron. Just really hot and melting a little bit. So what I do is I want to leave that one flat, and I lift one corner out. I pop my, that's got a bunch of carpet fibers on it. I'm going to just wipe them off. Get them out of the way. They're not going to hurt anything. We'll get them out of the way in a minute. And then we just bring that iron up in that first little point where we're going to start. And we only have to leave it there for a few seconds, just until it starts sliding real easy. You won't have any resistance. That glue will be melted, and it'll be just slick as snot in there, and it'll slide pretty good. And you slide it a few inches. Make sure this is lined back up just the way you want it. Bring it together. Slide this just a little bit more. And you can lift the carpet up just by pulling the yarns a little bit and making sure that you go right down together. And that's just right. And then this is a seam tractor or a seam roller, depending on what you want to call it and where you buy it. But you put that together and it helps blend that yarn together and pushes the backing right down into the glue. And then you put a little bit of weight on there. And then this is completely ready already to go ahead and just slide out. And I picked up the piece with the nap laying that way, and I let the piece with the nap, this other piece that's already laying that way, fall, so these yarns won't get down into the glue as I bring this down. And you bring those right together. I don't leave any gap at all. Those yarns just came right together. I mean, the backings of the 2 pieces came right together, right next to each other. You don't want them to overlap. It's better to have just a tiny bit of a gap, maybe the thickness of a penny, but no more than that. And I don't have any. I bring them right next to each other. Those 2 pieces lay just next to each other, and you won't hardly even see any daylight through there. But you definitely don't want them to overlap. If they overlap, that seam will peak. And then we're done with the iron for a minute, so I'm going to unplug it because I don't like them to keep just getting hot. So I'll leave this weight on here for just a minute, let that cool a bit. And then I'll pull the weight off, I'll let it cool completely before I slide this piece into place and then run the length seam, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay guys, so our iron's good and hot. I went ahead and folded this carpet back over and set the pieces in place. I already have my seam tape underneath my seam, which is right here. A lot of guys at this point will take and fold this piece back out into the middle of the room and seam it where it's out flat and out of the way of the wall. I'm okay, and I'm comfortable with seaming it right in place, but there's really no right or wrong way to do that. It's just different people's preferences. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to get started by pulling one piece back, making sure that my seam tape's set after moving my pieces around right where I want it to be. And I've run it right to the wall, and I've run it right to the laminate down on that edge. I don't want it going up the wall or over the laminate because it'll get glue on everything. So I run it right to the wall, and I'll start my iron right back up against the wall, or right close to it. I'll start my iron within about 1/8 of an inch away from the wall, just so I don't get glue on my newly painted baseboards. And I'll slide that down. I can actually go ahead and carry it all the way down to the other end because I won't need it till I come out the other side. But I'll slide it as I go. And I want to make sure that my joint is lining just up the way it should be, my seam, my 2 pieces of carpet. A lot of times I'll have my kicker with me right here to move this piece around to make sure everything stays the way it should. But this piece is small enough that I can move it around by hand without the use of my kicker. And I always want to go back behind it and just make sure that the backings are meeting together, one to the other, and that the yarns aren't getting stuck down in the glue, and that the carpet's not overlapping anywhere, but just meeting. And we'll roll that down. A lot of times I'll tuck that edge in, but I don't have I'm going to tuck it in with my scissors. And that's just to hold the edge of that carpet down in that glue while we go here. I'll set my weight there in just a second anyways. Like I said, as we go, we'll just make sure those backings are meeting and not overlapping. And once you get started, you won't have to move it too much. They'll stay pretty close. You always want to keep an eye on it. You have to move it a little bit, but not a whole lot. And I'm probably actually moving the iron a little slower than I should. I probably should be going a little faster. If you leave it set too long, you'll actually burn the glue off of the tape, rendering it pretty much useless. There I had to move my tape a little bit. I noticed ahead of me it was starting to slip out of place. I probably won't have to use my scissors too much on this piece of carpet. This is a really good carpet, and I was able to cut, when I straight edged and made my cuts, I was able to cut right between the yarns on most of them instead of cutting through any of them and leaving any stragglers. So I'll have to scissor a little bit when I'm done, but just to clean things up, but we should be in pretty good shape. It's actually been quite a while since I've done this, been a couple years, so I'm a little bit rusty, but unfortunately I did it long enough that it kind of comes right back to you. Now I've got a heat vent right here, and as the heat is on, it tends to sag that down a little bit and pull this away, so I have to keep an eye and make sure my backings are touching each other. They're lining up really nicely, and they are. I have to keep moving them one way and then the other. Yeah, we're in good shape here. When you seam doorways together, doorways can be a little bit tricky, trying to get your iron in and then back out on the other side without making too much of a mess. Depending on where that doorway's at and how things line up, you can be kind of fighting against baseboards and another wall, and it can be a little bit tough. But I will show that process. I have a hallway
going into my master closet that will very closely resemble an actual doorway. There's lots of different situations where you run into different size and lengths and widths of seams and different obstacles that you have to seam around. There might be posts right in the middle of the room. You have to seam around and stretch around. I don't have any of those things right here to show you, and I'm actually kind of grateful that I don't, because they're a pain in the neck. But for the most part, this is going to be the type of seam that you run into the most. You're going to run into doorway seams, and you're going to run into fill seams. This being a fill seam, where the room's wider than the 12 feet that the carpet comes, and we have to make the carpet grow. This is how we do it. So this seam's going together really nice, and it should look really good when we get done. When you seam your carpet together, if you do it right, on most carpets, you should never be able to see where your seam is. Now, there are exceptions to that. Certain carpets, I found that in my experience, there's nothing I can do to completely hide a seam. All I can do is put them together, and that's going to be lower nap carpets, carpets that don't have much yarn. All I can do is put them together the very best I can, make sure the backing's meeting, make sure I don't cut through any of the nap or the yarns, and then work on them a little bit with the seam tractor or the seam roller, and sometimes that's the best you can do to make them completely disappear. You may not be able to. I've seen situations where you can come back sometimes with a steam cleaning unit, a steamer, steam them up a little bit, and sometimes that helps, but sometimes, especially with some lower nap carpets or some of the pattern carpets, it can be really tough to make your seam completely disappear. This is a frisé carpet, or a cut loop carpet, I guess it is. This is one that I really, really like. It's a nice thick piece, really comfortable to walk on. It's got multiple different colors and flecks of different colors in it that really complement our walls and our decor. And it also, with this particular color, it won't look dirty very easily. Not that we keep our home dirty, but to me that's always a benefit if something always looks clean, and this is a good one for that. Okay, we're just coming to the end here. And what I want to make sure I don't have is seam tape running up onto my laminate floor where it's going to get glue on there. That would not make my wife happy, or me, because I'd be the one trying to fix it. So what I can do now is I'll unplug the iron, because we're at the end, and I will pull this out. And I usually like to pull off one side and pull straight out and not drop that carpet down in the glue until I can bring the two together. And I do that just like that. And that's it. That's carpet seaming 101. I'll probably come back and show you a little bit of a doorway seam if I get a chance. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comments below. If you would, please subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you as a subscriber, and like the videos if you like them, and help us grow our channel here on YouTube. Click the bell notification so you get notified whenever we put out new videos, and we'll plan on putting out some new ones as quick as we can. I've been behind on my uploading schedule because of trying to get into this house, but we're almost done. In fact, we're planning to start moving in this next weekend, so I should be able to start uploading more videos, and look forward to doing that. So if I may do a quick update at the end of this video, but if not, I want you guys to know I appreciate each and every one of you, and with a little bit of instruction, I think anybody can learn how to do this pretty easily. And I hope you guys have a great week. We'll talk to you in the next video.